Yeah, what's the word? Leroy, what's the word? Leroy, hey, what's the word? Leroy, what's the word? Leroy, hey.
Let's talk about one of the hardest parts of leadership. The conversations we don't look forward to, the ones we replay in our heads, the ones we delay, the ones we know we need to have, but hope something changes before we have to. Hard conversations. And here's the truth. If you're in leadership long enough, you will face them. Not once, not twice, but consistently. Because leadership is not just about celebrating wins. It's about addressing reality. Let me say something that might be uncomfortable. Avoiding hard conversations does not protect people. It delays growth. And sometimes, it allows situations to get worse. Let's paint a real picture. You have a teacher who is struggling. Maybe it's classroom management. Maybe it's instruction. Maybe it's professionalism. And you see it. You hear about it. You feel it in the building. But instead of addressing it directly, you soften it. You hint at it. You bring it up in small ways. You hope they pick up on it. Weeks go by, then months, and now nothing has changed. Now you're frustrated. The teacher is still struggling. Students are impacted. And now the conversation you avoided has become bigger than it needed to be. That's why hard conversations matter, because they create clarity. Let's shift it. What does it look like to actually support growth through hard conversations? First, you have to be clear. Not harsh, not aggressive, clear. Instead of saying, things need to improve, say, I've noticed students are frequently off task during independent work time, and it's impacting learning. That's clear. That's observable. That gives the teacher something to understand. Second, you have to connect it to impact, because this is not about gotcha. It's about students. This is important because students are losing instructional time, and we want to make sure every student has the opportunity to learn at a high level. Now, it's not personal. It's purposeful. Third, you have to provide support, because hard conversations without support feel like judgment. What can we put in place to help you? Would it help if I modeled a strategy? Can we co-plan a lesson together? Now you're not just pointing out the issue. You're walking alongside them. Let's walk through a scenario. You sit down with a teacher and say, I want to talk about classroom engagement. I've noticed during whole group instruction, only a few students are participating while others are disengaged. Pause. Let them respond. Then, let's think about strategies we can use to increase participation. Maybe adding turn and talks or cold calling with support. I'm happy to model or plan with you. That's a hard conversation, but it's also a growth conversation. Now here's where it gets even harder. What happens when the support is there? The conversations have happened, and the growth is not happening. This is the part leadership doesn't always talk about. Because not every situation leads to improvement. Not every teacher responds to coaching. Not every situation can be sustained long term. And this is where the second part of leadership comes in. Knowing when it's time to move on. That is not easy. It's not something anyone enjoys. But it is part of the responsibility. Because at the end of the day, this is about students. If a classroom is consistently not meeting expectations, if students are not receiving the instruction they deserve, if the environment is not improving despite support, we have to make a decision. And that decision is not about being harsh. It's about being responsible. Let's be real again. This is where leadership can feel heavy. Because you're not just making a decision, you're impacting someone's career, their livelihood, their future, and that weight is real. But here's the balance. You can care about the person and still hold the standard. Those two things can exist at the same time. You can say, I appreciate the effort you've put in, and we've worked through multiple supports together. At this point, we're not seeing the level of growth needed, and we have to make a decision moving forward. That's honest. That's clear. That's leadership. Now let's talk about what makes this possible. Trust and consistency. If you've built relationships, if you've been clear from the beginning, if you provided support along the way, then even the hardest conversations are grounded in fairness. But if hard conversations only happen at the end, it feels like a surprise. It feels like a blindside. And that's where things break down. So here's the takeaway. Hard conversations are not something to avoid. They are something to prepare for. They are part of growing people, part of building culture, part of maintaining standards. And yes, sometimes they lead to improvement. Sometimes they lead to change. And sometimes they lead to tough decisions. But all of them require courage. So as you think about your leadership, ask yourself this: what conversation am I avoiding right now? And what would it look like to approach it with clarity, support, and honesty? Because when you lean into hard conversations, you don't just address problems. You create opportunities for growth. And when growth isn't happening, you make the decisions that protect students and your school. That's leadership.
Yeah, what's the word? Leroy, what's the word? Leroy, hey, what's the word? Leroy, what's the word? Leroy, hey.